Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We are back again with more Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Man, I am so happy to finally provide this content. It's been over a year since my original Mythic Path ranking video, and I cannot tell you how many people have asked when I was going to update it. I didn't feel comfortable doing this until I had finished full playthroughs of all the paths, and with Demon completed last week, that has finally happened. A few notes before we get started. First, the Mythic Path system in this game is very unique and incredible to play through. All of them are awesome in at least one way. There's no path that I feel like you should strictly avoid. So even if you see a path rank consistently low, that doesn't mean it's terrible. It just means compared to the other amazing offerings, I don't think it's quite as good. Second, we are reviewing all 10 Mythic Paths in the game, which means this video will have spoilers. The existence of some of these paths is a spoiler in and of itself, so I do not feel the need to hold anything back. If you want a dialogue regarding the Mythic Paths that does not include spoilers, I will leave a link in the description for my original Mythic Path ranking video that was spoiler free. Third, we are going to rate these Mythic Paths 1 through 10 in 3 separate categories. The first category is role-playing. How much does this path make you feel like you've become a different person, or that you are occupying a particular role? The second category is story. How good or bad are the storylines for each Mythic Path? The third category is combat. How easy or fun is it to use this Mythic Path in difficult combat encounters? Then finally, I will give you my own personal ranking 1 through 10 of all the Mythic Paths. Final note, as always, I am open to feedback and would love to hear your own personal Mythic Path ranking list. This is all subjective, and my opinion is by no means the end-all be-all. With all that being said, let's dive right in. The first category is role-playing, and at number 10 we have Trickster. The role-playing in this path feels completely unfocused in a way that I don't think is good. Other paths have a more clearly defined role, and sometimes even layers within that role, a Lord of the Undead, or Symbol of Peace, for example. You would think this path should be geared towards people who just want to cause chaos in general, but that's not really the way it works out in-game. There are some funny moments where you can do crazy things, but for the most part, Trickster's insanity comes from its combat mechanics, not from how you actually roleplay it. Owlcat put this Mythic Path into the game for people who want a character that doesn't take the world very seriously. They succeeded in that, but the flip side is that the role-playing experience just isn't particularly interesting. At number 9, we have Angel. Angel makes you feel very powerful and is a blast to play, but you don't actually feel like you are becoming an angel. Honestly, even after my transformation in Act 5, where they literally give you wings, I still didn't feel like I was an angel. There are a couple of angels you talk with, but they are more so taking direction from you, not guiding you to join them in heaven. Iomade makes it very clear she doesn't want you to remain an angel, and definitely doesn't provide guidance in this regard. Consequently, until the very end of the game, you never feel like you are actually embodying a role. Instead, you are just using the powers of heaven to do good around Golarion. At number 8, we have Azada. Azada is a lot of fun to play, but the role-playing experience is weak because Azada is by definition undefined. Unlike Trickster though, this feels like a more natural fit. Freedom is what they stand for, and so you are meant to just be whatever you want. This is hammered home by the lack of a true Azada advisor who can guide you correctly along the path. So even though it doesn't feel like you are living up to a true role, at the same time, it doesn't feel like anything is missing. You walk your own path, and that is how things are meant to be. Number 7 is Devil. In Act 3, if you are an Aeon or Azada, the devil Melies will visit you in Dresden, and while you are not a devil yet, he essentially serves as your devil advisor. This allows you to learn more about hell, devils, and what will be expected of you in the role. By the time you actually sign the contract and sell your soul to Asmodeus, you have a pretty firm understanding of what you are getting into. Unfortunately, there are a few major weaknesses in role-playing as a devil. First, the game world has very little reactivity to the path. Regil has a couple of nice lines, but that's about it. You never go to hell, create contracts, get people to sign contracts, or do just about anything that would actually be associated with playing a devil. Also, it takes longer to become a devil than any other mythic path. You cannot choose devil at the beginning of Act 5, and Melias takes his sweet time visiting you to provide that opportunity. Unless you purposefully wait a couple of weeks in Dresden, you could easily be a few hours away from the end of the game before finally getting this path. Number 6 is Gold Dragon. In Act 3 you meet Hal, who serves as your Gold Dragon advisor and explains that it's a path of peace and understanding towards all people, regardless of what they have done. In that same vein, this mythic path is available to you regardless of what path you were previously following. This sets Gold Dragon up as the ultimate redemption arc mythic path. I don't think from a role-playing standpoint, switching from Azada or Angel to Gold Dragon makes a ton of sense. But switching from an evil path to Gold Dragon is a very strong journey. The problem is that the journey is mostly in your mind. There's very little content in the game that refers to how evil you were before and how now you are struggling against your nature to be a better person, even though that kind of thought process seems like what Gold Dragon was meant for. Instead, most of your dialogue and role-playing opportunities could apply to any alignment that was trying to follow this path. In my opinion, without that redemption arc, the role-playing aspect of Gold Dragon is relatively bland. Number 5 is Legend. Legend is available in Act 5 to all mythic paths regardless of your alignment or previous actions. All you have to do is be willing to completely reject your mythic power. There is no discussion of this prior to Act 5, however, if you make the decision to start down this path, Aurilu has a strong reaction and essentially becomes your first advisor. As you go through the steps necessary to achieve a full transformation, she will talk about the impacts and why it is so important to her that you don't do this. This dialogue gives you the opportunity to flesh out why you are making the choice and why being immortal is so important to you. Very strong role playing, and very strong reactivity from other people around you. The disadvantage is this path does not have as much content as some of the other options. Number 4 is Swarm. The game does a fantastic job of conveying right from the start that choosing Swarm has changed the life of your character forever. Initially, it's an incredible role-playing experience with wide-reaching implications. Discari himself essentially serves as your advisor, providing more information about what being a swarm truly means and inadvertently guiding you along the path. Unfortunately, in addition to this being a late game path with a limited amount of time for role-playing, the other issue is the lack of reactivity. All of your party members leave and most never return, which honestly makes zero sense. You pretty consistently have the dialogue option to devour people, but outside of that, other characters you talk with in the game don't have the reaction they should to meeting somebody who is essentially made of bugs. So even though the role-playing aspect of Swarm is initially fantastic and sucks you right into what's going on, the follow-through leaves a lot to be desired. Number 3 is Lich. Right from the start, the role-playing is incredible for this path, and it feels like you are becoming a Lord of the Undead. Your advisor Zacharias is constantly around, providing more information about what your final transformation will entail, what being a Lich means, and how you can gain more power. The weakness in this is that you don't actually become a Lich until your full transformation is complete. This means that while you do get undead party members, they are sprinkled throughout the game, and you will not have a completely undead party until Act 5, even though you choose Lich in Act 3. The role-playing aspect is a slow burn, where you are building up to what you really want to be. I should also mention that your undead party members are, for the most part, mute. This significantly hurts the game world reactivity toward you as a Lich, but at the same time, I think it strengthens the role-playing aspect of the path. Being Lord of the Undead is a bleak, lonely road, and I think the silence you experience, even from those who are supposed to be your closest allies, strongly reinforces this. Number 2 is Demon. The fascinating thing about role-playing in this path is that your understanding of the role doesn't come from an advisor. It comes from within. There's a rage inside of you, and it knows when to come out and have you assert dominance. You can decide when to unleash that rage and when to chain it based on how you play your character. There is a lot of reactivity throughout the game to this path, and Act 4 in the Abyss is significantly more enjoyable when playing as a demon. The main issue with role-playing as a demon is that for most of the game, you do it behind closed doors. The Crusade doesn't realize you are an all-out demon until Act 5, so you don't get the kind of reactivity available as a Lich or Aeon. On the flip side, the payoff once you officially choose Demon creates epic moments that are arguably beyond what those other paths provide. Number 1 on the list is Aeon. More than any other mythic path, Aeon feels like you are slowly becoming an otherworldly entity. All the other paths on at least some level are concerned with human desires: peace, power, love, friendship, freedom, chaos, or rage. None of these words hold any meaning for the Aeon. Your advisor has a strong code that must be strictly followed in order to live up to what an Aeon is supposed to be. You can uphold these ideals and gain incredible time-traveling abilities, or you can roleplay a character that strongly disagrees with the advisor and consequently become a renegade Aeon. Unlike Demon, everybody realizes how deeply you have changed, and oftentimes it frightens them, providing you with fantastic role-playing opportunities. There is one caveat that I think is worth noting. While the role-playing aspect of True Aeon is incredible, I am not sure if I would describe it as fun. You essentially have to be cold and oftentimes cruel towards everyone around you, but at the same time, it doesn't provide the dark humor of an actually evil path. Of course, Renegade Aeon is an option, but I believe it's a significantly weaker role-playing experience, and therefore Aeon just isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea. The next category is story. At number 10, we have Trickster. The way Trickster is introduced in Act 1 makes you believe you'll run around tricking enemies and pulling cool pranks, but that's not how the story works out. You'll be helping Sokoth Banath and a council of other characters pull a massive prank by changing the world wound into a mythic highway. The end goal is hilarious when you pull it off, but the journey there is borderline boring. Most of what you do is fetch quests for people who are not particularly interesting. Despite being Nocticula's brother, Sokoth Banath provides no additional information regarding her, and his overall dialogue is not very memorable. On a side note, it's kind of weird that out of all the mythic paths, Lich gives you the most background information on Nocticula. Anyway, outside of the hilarious ending, the main saving grace of Trix's story is the ability to prank Nocticula and then kill her. Outside of those few moments, Trickster didn't wow me. Number 9 is Gold Dragon. Gold Dragon's story is all about how teaching you to become a gold dragon. You'll meet some other dragons and learn interesting lore along the way. It's not a storyline so much as it is a journey, and unfortunately the journey involves you doing a bunch of fetch quests for civilians. These quests fold into what you need to do in Act 5 anyway, but the path does nothing to make them more interesting, and consequently it feels uninspiring. The exception to this is your ability to at least somewhat redeem Tyrendalev. I definitely enjoy those conversations, but overall this story didn't move me. Number 8 is Devil. Devil's storyline involves you working out a partnership with Abigail Thrune II, who is the Queen of Cheliax. Right off the bat, this means you will enjoy Devil's storyline significantly more if you are familiar with Pathfinder tabletop lore. I never played the tabletop version, but still was able to follow the Devil storyline with little issue. Melines plays a large role in this adventure, constantly providing his entertaining thoughts and guidance. As I have mentioned before, the story doesn't really allow you to do Devil-related things. The political intrigue is fun, but there's so little time that things don't feel fleshed out. Consequently, while I enjoyed what Devil provided, I was definitely left unsatisfied and wanting more. Number 7 is Azada. Azada's storyline revolves around an island where creatures from various faraway places come together and assist you against the demon invasion. There's a very young and carefree vibe to the dialogue that centers around friendship and having a good time while helping other people. Azada also focuses on the purification of Galarian, so there are several points throughout the map where you can cleanse a particular area of corruption and bring greenery to the landscape. This storyline is also the only way to unlock Avu, a Havoc dragon that levels up as you gain mythic levels. Avu gets a ton of dialogue in the game and basically serves as an extra party member except for a complete lack of voice acting. There's nothing here that I would say is bad, but outside of lifting your island into the air, I don't think Azada feels particularly epic, especially compared to the other storylines I am going to mention. You have friends, all of you have a good time together, and every so often they help you fight demons. It's fun, and I enjoyed the playthrough, but I wouldn't rank it higher. Number 6 is Swarm. Picking Swarm as your path in Act 5 is, in my opinion, the most epic and intense Mythic Path related moment in the entire game. Immediately, Discari shows up, Iomedae tries to kill you, all of your companions abandon you, and your own crusade turns against you. After you get through the epic opening, you find out that Discari has implanted a part of himself in your swarm body, giving him some measure of control and allowing him to see everything you do. It also allows him to telepathically communicate with you, resulting in several unique dialogues that provide more insight into his personality. The story revolves around you figuring out how Discari became the swarm and then using that information to expel his intruder from your body. This journey takes you into the Rasping Rifts, making Swarm the only path that actually gets to explore Discari's abyssal realm. In addition, Crusade management will have random cultists and psychopaths visit Dresden, hoping to be devoured by your swarm. It's really cool how most of your Crusade units are turned into different types of Vescivores. Unfortunately, as I already mentioned, the swarm experience is weakened by the complete absence of party members. A big part of the joy in playing an evil path is seeing the reaction from good aligned characters. Anivia is around for you to torment, but outside of that, there's nobody to provide a sounding board regarding the horrors that are occurring. Even the party members that do come back do it in a way that isn't consistent with their character. Right before you reach Threshold, Soseo, Sela, Regil, and Ember corner you into a fight. Why didn't Soseo and Sela join up with Galfrey and warn her what you have become? If they think you are dead, why didn't they rally what's left of the Crusade? Why wouldn't a Rushallan land stick with them? Why didn't Regil rally the Hell Knights to stop you? The game doesn't answer these kinds of questions at all, and it's confusing. So while you can be deliciously evil in this path, it feels like it's happening in a vacuum, which harmed my enjoyment of it. Number 5 is Legend. More than any other Mythic path, Legend gives you insight into what makes Arilu tick and why she decided to go down the path she has. The story gives you multiple unique dialogues, where she basically begs you not to go through with denying your mythic power. You are also provided with unique interactions involving Iomedae, who is thrilled to see you reject Arilu's gift. Once that main story arc is ended and you officially become a legend, you will start what are, in my opinion, the strongest Crusade management sequences in the game. Since Legend rejects all Mythic paths, none of the other Mythic path advisors feel threatened by you, and they all show up to support your Crusade. What follows is a series of meetings with each advisor where they provide various options on how you can benefit from their presence. These conversations are fantastic, especially if you already have finished some of the other paths and are familiar with these characters. All of that together makes the storyline very compelling, and honestly, the only reason it's not higher up on the list is that you get this path so late it cannot hope to compete with the other path options. Number 4 is Lich. This story revolves around your advisor Zacharias and what he needs to complete your transformation into becoming a true Lich. This requires you to build your own ziggurat to house all the undead and find powerful souls to serve as your grave guards or undead party members. I really like the Crusade management in this path, as it has you collaborating with representatives from vampire and necromancy cities, allowing you to flesh out what kind of undead lord you want to be. You gain undead Crusade units that steadily increase in number as you defeat demon armies. This mechanic works very well, and I felt more more powerful at the end of my Lich run from a Crusade standpoint than I did during most other paths. More so than other Mythic paths, Lich is very easy to screw up. You can accidentally skip undead party members, miss getting a phylactery, and permanently damage your relationship with Zacharias. I actually like this because it means there can be a lot of variety in playthroughs even for people who are going down the same Mythic path. The issues I have with the storyline are similar to the issues I have with the role-playing experience. In my opinion, the arc of your slow evil rise is weakened by mute party members who don't react at all to what you do. The more powerful you become, the less reactivity you get from the people around you. Of course, this is balanced when having a group of party members that are only available on this path, most of whom have classes that your standard party members don't get. Regardless, Lich has a great arc coupled with fantastic character moments, and I really enjoyed my time with it. Number 3 is Angel. Angel's story revolves around you aligning with Iomede's followers, both angelic and human, to assist them in stopping the demonic invasion. This story is tightly woven into the main story. There are only a couple of characters you can meet who are exclusive to the Angel path, but you get a much greater amount of background information regarding what's happening when you play as an angel. You also get more opportunities to interact with Iomede. Targona and the Hand of the Inheritor both serve as advisors for Crusade management, making those discussions more interesting. I think it's also worth noting that Angel is one of the few paths that can romance Queen Galfrey, and in my opinion, the romance makes the most sense on this path, especially if you worship Iomede. Angel also has one of the best non-ascension endings in the game, allowing you to enter Discari's Abyssal Realm and end him permanently. Doing this with Queen Galfrey at your side is an extremely satisfying end to a long journey. I played Angel on my first full run of the game and definitely didn't regret it. Number 2 is Aeon. Aeon's story is all about restoring cosmic balance and order. So while it feels more otherworldly than other paths, it also feels grounded in what's actually happening in the Crusade. The Aeon is hyper-focused on eliminating deception and corruption from the ranks of the Crusade. Assisting in this mission are the eyes of the Aeon, which can see auras around everyone it meets. These auras reveal when an individual has committed a crime or acted in an unlawful manner. A lot of your time in the story is spent judging court cases and banishing people with said auras in the name of upholding justice. These people often have very well-written backgrounds that make their crimes complicated, and the court cases are great as well. Staying on the path of a true Aeon will reward you with time travel abilities that can significantly change the fate of several major characters. Consequently, True Aeon has the best non-ascension ending in the entire game, and arguably the best ending in the game, period. With all that being said, I do have a caveat regarding this storyline. I think it's fantastic if you play as a true Aeon, but a renegade Aeon isn't really distinguishable from what you do in other paths. Therefore, I believe fully experiencing the time-traveling mechanic is key to getting the most out of Aeon. The issue with this is, to truly appreciate how much time traveling changes the game, you have to have already played it at least once. Therefore, while I think True Aeon's story and ending is fantastic, I also wouldn't recommend it for a first-time run. Number 1 is Demon. Demon's story is the one most tightly woven into the main story. Act 4 is almost tailor-made for a Demon playthrough. Just like Angel, you don't meet many new characters, but you learn a lot more about characters that everybody meets. The difference is, in my opinion, talking more with Yaz, Nocticula, Shamira, and other villains is more interesting than the typical lawful good bunch that the Angel becomes associated with. In addition, throughout the story, it actually feels like you are becoming a true demon who is learning how to use his rage to get what he wants. The moment where you successfully betray Nocticula and become the ruler of Illusionera is unquestionably one of the most epic moments in the game. The next category is combat. For all the paths, I am only going to talk about the mechanics up to Mythic level 9. Some of them have really nice features at level 10, but the game is over at that point, so I don't think it really matters for this ranking. At number 10, I picked Devil. When you choose Devil, its Mythic mechanics will stack on top of the Aeon or Azada mechanics you have already earned. It doesn't have its own spellbook, but you will still retain any spells you picked up from previous Mythic paths. Devils are able to cast Hellfire Ray, Dominate Person, and Power Word Stun as at-will spells. Hellfire Ray is the most powerful blasting spell, so at first glance this sounds great. Unfortunately, because you are using it as an ability instead of from a spellbook, this casting won't work with wands. You cannot quicken, empower, or maximize the at-will spell in any way, and keep in mind you won't get this until Mythic level 9, when you are already facing high-level enemies. So essentially, it's useless to you. The other two spells are great if you specialize in enchantment, but if you don't, they also serve no purpose. Devils get the ability to use decrees and hell seals. Most of the decrees center around increasing your caster level and DC of a particular school of magic, while also limiting you to only using that school of magic. This could be really useful for someone like Nanio, but honestly in all my builds, even she uses spells outside of the illusion school. So while again, in theory this sounds great, in practice, unless you have someone who is highly specialized, this just ends up being more micromanagement, turning the buff on and off so you can use different spells. Hell Seals are 5 different effects that you can place on party members to heal them, help them do damage, or provide some form of protection. They are okay, but there's nothing groundbreaking there that you can really hang your hat on. In my opinion, Devil is pretty mediocre in combat, and I honestly didn't feel powerful at all during my Devil playthrough. At number 9, I chose Gold Dragon. Gold Dragon is a late game mythic path that wipes out all the mechanics of your original path once you select it. In return, you get a 50-foot cone breath attack that deals holy damage, a nice selection of immunities, an increase to your saving throws and attributes, and your spells will do more damage. No matter what type of build you are playing, Gold Dragon will definitely help you. You also get the ability to literally turn into a powerful Gold Dragon with massive boosts to your stats. 2 issues caused me to rank this path lower. First, while you get a lot of really nice boosts to your stats, you are not given the opportunity to really do anything different. Paths like Azada, Lich, Angel, etc. all give you crazy spells or new abilities that really shine in combat and sometimes completely change how you play. Outside of the breath attack, Gold Dragon won't change how you approach combat, it's just going to allow you to do things better than you did before. This is related to my second issue with the path. A major draw of Gold Dragon is supposed to be that you can walk around as a dragon and literally take bites out of your foes. Unfortunately, in practice, the dragon's body is way too large to be reasonably usable in the small quarters Wrath of the Righteous often puts you in. Consequently, most times you will have to ignore what is really supposed to be the core of the path. On a smaller note, Gold Dragon is also one of the few paths that does not give you any new spells. At number 8, I chose Swarm. Swarm is a late game mythic path that will wipe out all of your previous path choices and you lose access to all of your party members. In return, you get Swarm clones. These clones are exact copies of your build, including the mythic abilities and feats you have selected. By late game, you are allowed to have up to 2 clones. How many clones you have access to is determined by your swarm size, which gets larger the more people you devour. Swarm size also determines a lot of the boost you get from the path, including damage resistance, natural armor, and attribute point increases. Your swarm size also determines the amount of damage you're able to do when manually directing the swarm to attack foes. Swarm does not provide you with any new spells. Take my thoughts on Swarm with a grain of salt, because when I played it, you started with 0 clones and getting access to them was broken, so it took much longer than it should have. Owlcat has patched those issues, and now, once you have devoured enough people, you will be able to get your first clone. This is a step in the right direction, but honestly, I don't think it changes how I felt during my original playthrough, and that you don't make up for losing your party members until the end of the game. For some reason, Owlcat limits you to 2 clones at Mythic level 9, but then you can get 5 clones at Mythic level 10. In my opinion, the clones should be spaced out among those last 3 Mythic paths more evenly. The other mechanics I mentioned are definitely powerful, so I wouldn't say it's a slog getting through Swarm, but it still seems like there's a little more work that could be done. At number 7, I picked Legend. Legend is the only path that raises your character level cap to 40 as opposed to 20. This path also significantly reduces the amount of XP needed to level up, so you will climb up to 40 very rapidly. At first glance, this sounds all powerful, as you can basically double up on classes. I rank this lower because honestly, I feel like it's very easy to screw up your Legend build. There are a lot of mechanics in Pathfinder that either do not stack or do not work together cleanly, and the game is not going to give you a pop-up letting you know your build is trash. Therefore, you really need to understand the inner workings of this game to get the most out of a Legend playthrough, and I don't think that's true for some of the other paths. Also, similar to Gold Dragon, Legend doesn't really give you something new, it just takes what you have been doing and helps you do it even better. Your first 20 levels almost certainly will define what your next 20 levels are going to be. It does provide a small boost to your attribute scores, but does not give you any new spells. Consequently, Legend doesn't feel as mythic in combat as some other paths, but obviously that is kind of the point. Next at number 6 is Aeon. As an Aeon, you get one of the most powerful lists of natural immunities that are provided from a mythic path in the game. Your presence also makes the entire party immune to mind-affecting effects, which is extremely useful. With your first mythic rank, you can get Force Reality, which lets you cast Greater Dispel Magic as an area effect on enemies, specifically removing their illusion effects. There are a ton of enemies that use illusion powers, and being able to strip Mirror Image, for example, off of several enemies at one time is extremely satisfying. The Aeon Bane ability will increase your damage, strip enemy buffs when you successfully hit, and increase your ability to overcome spell resistance. This Bane stacks with the Bane you can get from the Inquisitor line of classes, potentially creating some nice synergy with your base class. Aeons also get a variety of gazes to choose from. Gazes are short-term buffs that provide a boost in a specific area based on how high your mythic level is. The really cool thing about this list is it's so varied that you can almost certainly find something that will help your team regardless of what kind of build or squad you are running with. Finally, Aeon does give you a spell book up to spell level 5. There's a lot there that is useful, such as slowing enemies while hasting allies, or making your entire party invulnerable to physical damage. The disadvantage is the spellbook uses Charisma as its casting attribute, which means if you are running a build that doesn't have high Charisma, you could potentially be locked out of some of these spells. Both Aeon spells and gazes have fantastic visual effects that really drive home the mythic cosmos aspect of playing this path. What I don't like about Aeon is that while it lends itself very well to buffers, debuffers, and summoners, I don't think it's a great choice when your main focus is dealing damage, and I would argue most people playing Pathfinder are building damage dealers. The reason it doesn't work well in this regard is that most of what Aeon provides requires a standard action. So yes, the gazes are nice buffs, and Force Reality is a fantastic debuff, but you have to burn a turn in order to use them. Gazes cannot be activated outside of combat, so there's no way to pre-buff your party. Also, even though the effects gazes provide are nice, I wouldn't really call them game-breaking until the game is basically over. Unlike the Lich, for example, which is bonkers right from the start, Aeon buffs are, for most of the game, more like a solid boost for the party. Next up at number 5 is Demon. As a demon, you get Demonic Rage, which provides a powerful buff to your character until the end of combat, and also activates your aspects. Similar to Aeon Gazes, demons get a large list of aspects, which provide buffs to your party and debuffs against your enemies. Most of these buffs activate specifically when you use Demonic Rage, which is available a limited number of times per day. You will also get one Demon Lord aspect, which you can select from a completely separate list of powerful buffs. By late game, you are able to keep 4 aspects activated at one time, providing a significant boost whenever you enter Demonic Rage. Close to the Abyss provides you with a gore attack that will most likely stack with other physical attacks you already have. Demons also get Demonic Charge, which in my opinion is the most fun way to travel in the game. It's a 10-foot teleportation spell that does unholy damage to any enemies that are around when you trigger it, and any enemies in the vicinity of where you land. Activating Demonic Rage is a free action, while Demonic Charge is a move action, which still leaves you with swift and standard actions to deal damage with on your first turn. Demons also give you a spell book that goes up to spell level 5. Many of these spells allow you to polymorph into really cool forms that make a demon playthrough even more fun. The issue I have with Demon is that just about everything revolves around Demonic Rage, and you get limited uses of that ability. To be clear, you get enough activations that it's probably going to be available for you in tough boss fights, but it's definitely not something you can use on a steady basis. This means, unlike other paths we will mention, there's nothing 24/7 that really makes you feel like a demon during combat. At number 4 we have Azada. Instrument of Freedom provides a bolt that charges party member weapons with holy damage, which is very effective against the evil enemies in this game. They also get access to Avu, who essentially serves as a 6th party member and over time gets access to powerful cleric spells. The core of this path is superpowers, which are permanent buffs that dramatically alter what your character can do. Most of this list is absolutely fantastic and will dramatically help your build, whether you are a spellcaster, martial character, or a combination of the two. Azada also gives you songs and spells up to level 7 that can provide additional buffs and really nice temporary effects. What I love about Azada is that it is all very streamlined and simple. These are great mechanics for new players. If you are a melee character, no problem. Pick up incredible might and supersonic speed and then go to town. If you prefer to cast spells, zippy magic and favorable magic definitely have you covered. It's all very clearly laid out, and you don't need a deep understanding of the mechanics to make Azada useful. Unfortunately, I think this is also the curse of Azada. It doesn't really dig into the mechanics of the game, and consequently, it doesn't allow people who understand those mechanics to squeeze more power out of what's available here. It just is what it is, regardless of your skill level, so I think there's a lower cap on what Azada can do comparatively. At number 3 we have Trickster, which possesses an insane collection of mechanics. Trickster is all about mythic tricks, which take a specific skill in the game and then significantly expands what it can do for you. Each mythic trick has 3 ranks, and all 3 of them will provide a completely different boon for your character. Some of these boons are incredibly powerful, such as rank 3 Knowledge Whirl, which will completely remove feat requirements for you and all your party members. Rank 2 Perception will give the entire party access to a list of feats that are exclusive to the Trickster path. Rank 2 Persuasion will have you automatically attempt to demoralize and paralyze all enemy combatants at the start of an encounter. Believe it or not, those are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what mythic tricks let you do. Trickster also has a spell book that goes up to spell level 7. There are some really nice options here, like Microscopic Proportions, the only way to get +6 size bonus for dexterity. You also get Trick Fate, which allows someone on your party to always roll 20 on d20 rolls for 3 rounds. It's all absolutely bananas, and the mechanics of Trickster are a ton of fun. The drawback here is there's a lot going on, and it's easy to screw up. You only get to take a rank 3 level mythic trick once before mythic level 10, and you must have previously taken rank 1 and 2 of the same trick. This forces you to read through all 3 lists of mechanics up front to ensure you get access to the level 3 mythic trick you want. On a similar note, because Trickster has so many fantastic options, and you have so few opportunities to select them, I never feel like I am really getting all or even most of the power this path has to offer. To some people that probably sounds great, because you can have 5 tricksters who are all completely built differently. But I think many players will instead see it as a source of irritation, that no matter what your trickster build is, there's a lot of great abilities you will have no access to. At number 2, I pick Lich. First and foremost, this path has the best spellbook in the game. Whether you are looking for damage, buffs, or healing, Lich has got you covered in a pretty awesome way. Many of these spells have absolutely fantastic visual effects. Wiping out an enemy with the literal finger of death just never gets old. The spellbook can also combine with other powerful classes like Sorcerer or Wizard, allowing you to get a head start towards the most powerful spells. Lich is the only path outside of Angel that gets level 10 spells, so this head start is actually a big deal. The main caveat with the Lich spellbook is that the offensive spells don't do nearly as well against enemies that don't have blood. There are domination and summoning spell options to get around that, and of course, there are your party members. As I've already mentioned, you get 5 completely unique companions, 4 of whom use classes that are not covered by the base party members given to you in the game. Their builds have varying levels of usefulness, but it's still a lot of fun being able to use a completely undead team. Liches also get Lured Beyond the Grave, which provides a buff to the strength, dexterity, and charisma scores of all undead under the Lich's control. It's worth mentioning that the Artifact Cloak, which provides a unique buff based upon your Mythic path, will add an additional +4 to this, making it an increase of 9 to those stats once you reach Mythic level 9. Also remember that undead characters use Charisma as a stat to determine their health, not Constitution. You also get a Skeletal Champion, which essentially serves as a 6th party member. You cannot level it up manually, but you can choose from templates that will give it useful abilities. Unfortunately, I found many of these templates underwhelming, but Archery works pretty well, and it's always nice having another body on the field. As if all of this wasn't compelling enough, you also get a large list of Lich powers, and you can choose 3 of them over the course of your playthrough. Lich powers give the path a ton of versatility because they can apply to a wide variety of builds. In fact, Lich is the only path with mechanics that directly interact with Alchemist Bombs and Kineticist Blast. You can play as a class that doesn't use spells at all and still have a fantastic time with Lich. Honestly, there's no drawback here, and the only reason it's not number 1 is because the number 1 pick is so incredible. Number 1 on the list is Angel. In my opinion, Angel's spellbook is second to Lich because it doesn't really get good until spell level 6. Despite this, Angel has the top 3 defensive spells and 2 of the most powerful offensive spells in the game. Fortress of the Faithful, Ward Against Weakness, and Army of Heaven give you just about all the defensive buffs that you need, and all of them are communal. This is a massive quality of life increase. One of the main issues with Pathfinder is that it forces you to do a ton of pre-buffing before fights. Late game, it can take a significant amount of time to stack on all the buffs you need just to survive. Angel significantly cuts into that time and lets you get back in the action at the click of a couple of buttons. Offensively, Bolt of Justice and his communal version Storm of Justice is the best damaging spell in the game. It's the only spell that gets stronger when used against stronger and more evil enemies, which is bananas. Wrath of the Righteous and Eye of the Sun both actually do more damage, but since they are level 9 and 10 respectively, they just won't get as many castings, and Wrath of the Righteous only works against demons. Still, they are way better than the other high level damaging spells other Mythic paths get. On top of that, Angels get the Sword of Heaven, which provides a short-term increase to your damage with weapons and spells, and it increases the healing you can do as well. You are provided multiple opportunities to upgrade the Sword of Heaven to do things like last longer, do increased damage, and specialize it against specific types of enemies. In addition, you constantly have the Halo, which can be upgraded with abilities like lowering the saving throws of all nearby enemies, or doing holy damage to all nearby enemies every round. It's just an absolutely fantastic package, and to top it all off, Angel showcases the most dynamic light show out of all the paths. Whether you are buffing your party or attacking enemies, it all just looks absolutely fantastic and makes you feel like a warrior of heaven. Quick note before we get into the last category. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate you hitting the like button. This information tells me which content the channel is enjoying and helps my videos spread to more people. I really appreciate all of the support. Alright, now that we have gone through all the separate categories, let me give you my own personal rankings list 1 through 10. At number 10, I list Gold Dragon. I personally find the Gold Dragon philosophy rather dumb, and consequently, it was difficult to enjoy that playthrough. I think Gold Dragon would have benefited from being able to actually redeem powerful enemies that you face, similar to what Aeon could do for Stalton Vane and Xanthir Vang. That doesn't really happen, so honestly, I was never a believer in what HAL was trying to do. At number 9, I list Devil. Like I mentioned in the combat section, the Devil mechanics felt weak to me, which made it hard to enjoy the playthrough, even though I actually really liked the story. I think I turned on a decree once or twice, and then I never really touched the mechanics again. I am glad I played through it once, but it's not something I would want to do again. At number 8, I list Swarm. I really enjoyed the lead up to and beginning of Swarm, but I felt equally let down by the follow through. It just really hurts this path that all your party members abandon it, and there's not enough added to make up for that. As I mentioned before, when I played through it, the clone mechanics were broken, and honestly, it almost felt like a solo run, which I hate doing. I prefer squad-based RPGs for a reason. Swarm is great, and you get to be more evil than what you typically see in other RPGs, but the game needs to provide more reactivity and reflections from people who are horrified by what you have become. Depending on the updates and enhanced edition, I might give this path another whirl. At number 7, I list Trickster. Crazy amounts of fun in combat, but the story feels super dumb, and I think a better job could have been done with your conversations amongst the Trickster Council. I also think there should have been more Trickster Mythic Path dialogue options that let you do crazy things, such as when you revive the dead Drake and Arushale's quest or mutate the Abyss Arena Masters. Moments like that were amazing and fit right in with what this path is supposed to do, but I don't think the game gives you enough of them. On a lesser note, I'd like to mention I was really irritated to find out you need an astronomical charisma score to romance Sokothbanath on this path. I played as a maniacal alchemist, my charisma score was trash, and consequently I completely missed this content. I know technically this isn't relevant, but it sticks in my craw and makes me dislike the path even more. Moving right along, number 6 is Legend. Love the crusade management here. Playing around with 40 levels was a ton of fun, and I think the dialogue between you and Arilu is absolutely fantastic. The main reason I don't like this path is, frankly, I strongly agree with Arilu that Iomedae is duping you and that there's nothing inherently wrong with keeping your mythic power. The arrogance with which Iomedae treats you, especially considering she started as a mortal, is something I find especially disconcerting. Consequently, that moment when you've completely stripped yourself of your power and Iomedae is almost jubilant with victory just doesn't feel particularly satisfying for me personally. Also, I think it's incredibly irritating that despite all the evil and insane things that happen in the game, this path is one of only 2 times where Iomedae will directly intervene. The Aeon literally tears off Targona's wing and doesn't get even a whisper of reproach. Targona also specifically mentions she doesn't believe Iomedae cares enough about her to repair the wing. Queen Galfrey being killed and then revived into an undead creature doesn't seem to warrant intervention by Iomedae at all, but the threat of another mortal, possibly gaining mythic power, suddenly moves her to action. All of that thoroughly irritates me and makes me not want to play as Legend. Number 5 is Aeon. Aeon is incredible, but it also feels very narrow. Personally, I'm not a fan of how the lawful alignment is implemented in Pathfinder. Being a person who is guided by the law doesn't mean you have to be a cold, unsympathetic drone, but that's kind of what this game pushes you into. For me, that's a turnoff, and I don't enjoy the manner in which I have to treat people to get the most out of this path. On a side note, I enjoy creating content for Aeon more than many of the other paths, specifically because you are such a douchebag the entire time. Seeing people's reactions these last couple of weeks has been a real joy. Number 4 is Azada. This path was great fun, but it has a vibe that's not really my thing when I am playing video games. It's about valuing friendship, being chaotic, and every so often doing something good. That's pretty much how I live my life, so I don't need to replicate it in my games. Even when playing as a good aligned person, I prefer a much harsher role-playing style, like what Angel provides as a holy warrior determined to root out evil wherever I find it. Azada was cool, and I play it again, but it's not my preference. Now we are venturing into the past I would have no problems playing over and over again. Number 3 is Lich. I had an amazing time doing a full playthrough of the path on this channel. Great story, phenomenal mechanics, unique party members, fantastic reactivity, and an ascension ending that promises your undead reach will extend far beyond Dresden. I've already mentioned my main drawback is that your new party members are almost completely mute. The other drawback that I haven't mentioned is that you cannot maintain a romance while playing as Lich. As many of you know, I'm really big on having a good romance in my games, and denying this possibility is a pretty big blow for my enjoyment. Lich is so incredible that it ranks high on my list despite this. Number 2 is Demon, which was my favorite evil playthrough, specifically because by the time it ends, you feel like such a force in the world. Devil is all about you swearing loyalty to Asmodeus, and there's not even a sliver of hope you will supplant him as ruler of hell. You can play Trickster as evil, but again, you don't feel like a force by the end. Lich is of course amazing, but you are surrounding yourself with mindless ghouls who cannot even think without your direction. A Demon Ascension run basically allows you to take control of Dresden, Alushanera, the Rasping Rifts, and Baphomet's abyssal realm, the Ineluctable Prison, all in one playthrough. Bananas! You are also surrounded by powerful demons with their own backgrounds and personalities who now bow to your every command. My demon run fed into all the worst parts of my personality, and I absolutely loved it. Number 1 for me is Angel. Out of all the paths, my mind keeps coming back to this one, and I want to do it again. The weak role-playing doesn't bother me, because as all of you know by now, my imagination can run wild. My Angel was a holy warrior completely hell-bent on eradicating evil wherever he encountered it, and I had a blast. I also really like the party members that align well with this path. When the enhanced edition comes out, I will do an ascension run with Soseo, Sela, Ember, Lan, and Nanio, and I already know that's going to be a really strong group. I cannot wait to see the new enhanced epilogues for this path. That wraps up my rankings of all the mythic paths in the game. Looking forward to seeing all of your feedback in the comments below and reviewing your personal rankings. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.